Hey, thanks for coming back to the channel. This video, some of you, and I would think a lot of you who are listening to this channel have some sense of what I'm going to talk about, and there are some that have no clue. Uh, the subject is the educational beatdown, and it's a real thing. Most of us have grown up where if you do something in the society or the culture, you might get a cross look or somebody might do prune face on you or something like that. There are other places in the country and even where you live that should you culturally misbehave, you will find yourself looking up at the stars and wondering what happened, or worse. And I'll talk about the or worse toward the end of this video. So think about that. If you have not grown up around people who beat people up for nothing, or what you would think is nothing today, if you wrinkle somebody's tennis shoes, you're going to get an educational beatdown. So there's some things behind there. One of them is called the big dog theory. Generally, if you're stupid or should have known better, the educational beatdown will be quick. Sometimes just a smack on the head or something simple. It will not resort to something where deadly force has been used. It's a spanking, okay? If you are the recipient of this educational beatdown and you acknowledge you were incorrect or wrong, unless it was really bad, like you put the moves on the Hells Angels ride or die trick, right? It's over fairly quickly. If you don't acknowledge that you broke a rule, or if you try to argue or get indignant or try to do the monkey dance, then there's going to be an escalation and you're going to get hurt even worse, especially if the person it was the big dog. This is not wrestling for dominance, which is the monkey dance, but this is where the big dog comes to you and puts you on the floor. Okay? It's not predation. It's not somebody trying to take something from you. It's just what you see among packs of dogs. If you refuse to acknowledge that you've done something incorrect, then you're also saying you don't recognize who the leader of the pack is, or the big dog. Worse, it says that you don't care. And then that's going to escalate even more. Think Al Capone, baseball bat, back of the head, that kind of stuff. Can be extremely violent. So almost all societies have rules, and almost all societies have the equivalent of the educational beatdown. But let's talk about us. There are three cases where the educational beatdown can be dangerous. One, if you're a dick, right? You did something wrong, everybody makes mistakes, and you think you don't deserve anything, and you're being a dick. If you insist on being a dick, punishment will escalate until you're taken out of the group, whatever that means, right? Fired, being beaten, or death behind a bar, right? But you're going to be removed. The second one is if the group or the leadership of the group is insecure. This applies to all social violence, but it's especially obvious in jail, jail or prison. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I've never been there, don't want to go there, but there's a special set of circumstances when you're inside that results in an educational beatdown or worse. The third is where you just don't know what you don't know. With the Hells Angels, for example, there are tiers of people. You can be around the angels even when they're wearing their colors. But there are rules. Um, and there are rules for members, and there are rules for people who have been given the classification of guest, which is not a trivial thing. But in a lot of cultures, it's okay to be arrogant and stupid. In some cultures, you're going to get hurt, right? If you're somewhere, here's some things to think about. If you're somewhere where you're unsure of what the rules are, rule number one, shut up. Keep your mouth shut. Don't have loud conversations because you don't know who's listening and you don't know who might be offended by what you say, right? If someone asks you a question, just be polite. Don't give an opinion. Just answer the question in a factual manner. Don't act like you're better than whoever else is around you, right? Don't stare, don't back away, and don't argue. Evading trouble is usually easy. The educational beatdown does have a pattern, and the pattern is universal. How does a killer get the death penalty taken off the table? Usually with a full confession and a show of remorse. How do you avoid hard feelings when you try to speak Arabic to a Kurd and you had no idea you were doing that? Or you flirt with the bouncer's girl. You say, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Mea culpa, it won't happen again. Most of the time, that'll make you good to go. Okay? If you try to avoid responsibility, it's going to escalate. Okay? So let's talk about what I would call the current model of the educational beatdown. And that's what gangbangers do today, especially young ones. The young kids under 18. Because they've been trained, they have guns, but there's two types of shootings that you will see or read about happening. Two types of shootings. One is where they're really trying to kill you and they're shooting above the waist, right? The other is when someone walks up to you and shoots you in the leg or the arm. They're not trying to kill you. What they're doing is giving you an educational beatdown with a bullet. So if you read some of the stories about shootings, whether they're, I love when the press does this, near XYZ school, now that could be 5 miles away. Near XYZ University, that could be 20 miles away. But they want to put that school, they want to put that university in the sentence so that when there's research done on the story, they can classify it as a school shooting or a college shooting or even a mass shooting. So pay attention if you read the detail. You will find that so-and-so was shot in the leg. This just happened yesterday. I forget where, but a security guard was in a doing his thing and ran out some shoplifters. Security guard, not loss prevention. This is security guard. Ran them out. And they were kids, and they tried to, push on him, beat him up. They went away and came back. And they came back with a gun and shot him in both legs. Now, he didn't die, because if they wanted to kill him, they'd have shot him in the head. Now, that's what you see happening with a lot of law enforcement getting shot. Everybody knows that a law enforcement person has a vest on. They're not going to waste a bullet on the vest. They will almost always go for the head. And that's why you see so many law enforcement officers dying after being shot. You will almost never read a story of a law enforcement officer who all they'll say is been shot survived in critical condition, but they'll never say where he was shot, almost never. And you can almost bet that if they're in critical condition, they weren't shot in the vest. You understand what I'm saying? But this is part of the education of the gangbangers and the bad guys on how they use their guns today to deliver this thing that they would consider an educational beatdown. There's educational beatdown on civilians. There's educational beatdown on their own crew, on somebody else's crew, and on law enforcement. So think about that. How do you avoid an educational beatdown if you're not a cop, right? I'm sorry, didn't know, won't happen again, mea culpa. Right? And you might just get a slap on the head. Right? Unless you're carrying a gun and you know you can take out all the people that are around you, you probably don't want to try that. Anyway, I thought I'd put this out there for this morning's little coffee conversation. Any thoughts you guys might have, any anecdotes, that would be kind of fun to read. And with that, as always, thanks for watching, and carry on.